Due to technical difficulties, you can't see me, but I'm here. Matt Coffin will come and see if he can get my video to work. Meanwhile, I will open up start the City Council meeting for December 21st, 2020. Ms. Hunt, would you call the roll?
Mr. Carter?
Here.
Mr. Young?
Here.
Mr. Walters?
Here.
Ms. Cleveland McGrath? Ms. Moulton?
Here.
Mr. McDougall?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Gear.
Yes, Mr. Walters.
Ms. Cleveland McGrath asked to be excused because she has another engagement. Said something about a snow day.
Oh, okay. What's your pleasure, council? Okay. No comment? All right.
I second it.
Is that a motion, Mr. Walters?
Sure.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye to excuse Ms. Cleveland McGrath.
Aye.
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 No, same sign, motion carries. So now we're going to move on to under announcements and committee reports, my COVID update. Island Hospital to date has tested 9,704 people. They have had 163 positive cases since March and 26 people admitted to the hospital. Skagit County estimates in 98221 zip code there are still approximately 200 current positive cases of COVID-19. In Skagit County, as of this last week on Saturday, December 19th, we've had 2,793 positive cases, 33 deaths, and 179 hospitalized people, compared to November, where we had 1,687 positive, 26 deaths, and 122. So the month of December has been very active for COVID-19. There was an increase of 1,106 cases in the last month, an increase of 57 hospitalizations, and 7 additional deaths since November. We currently have 423.4 new cases per 100,000 residents, and the percentage of individuals testing positive at the test site is 44.1%, which means people are showing up, they're symptomatic, and they're positive. Washington State now has 214,466 cases. 3,104 people have died. In the United States, we've had over 18 million cases, 319,000 deaths. And globally, 76.9 million cases and 1.7 million deaths. And that concludes my COVID update for tonight. If anyone has any question, go ahead now.
Mayor Gear?
Yes, Mr. Young.
At one point, you also indicated, you spoke about the weekly change in Anacortes Island Hospital District. I didn't know if you had those numbers.
I'm not able to get that
Okay.
This week.
Okay.
That's what I could get. So
Got it. No. I just, at some point, if you can, when you do, it's always enlightening.
Right. No, absolutely, I will.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So item 2B, Library Committee report. Library Committee did not meet. So we'll move on to item 2C, which is our Fiber Committee.
Mayor Deere.
Mr. McDougall.
Fiber Committee met on Thursday, and I would suggest that we primarily got a preview of what the Fiber Department is going to be presenting tonight with their update. So unless anyone else on the committee has anything specific they want to call out, I was going to just defer to them and not steal any of their thunder.
Makes sense to me.
All right.
So we'll move on to item 2D, which are Public Works Committee. Did they meet tonight, Mr. Buckemeyer?
We did, Mayor Gear.
Oh, yes.
This is Carolyn. Hi, we did just meet at 5 p.m. Councilmember Young and Walters and I with Public Works staff, including Mr. Buckemeyer. We spoke first of the South Fidalgo Water System Transfer Agreement, which has been reviewed and approved by the Skagit PUD, and now it's the city's turn to review it and make sure we're going through all the proper channels with Department of Health, et cetera. And there will be a public hearing for our citizens on this issue. And we will get a look at the transfer agreement prior to the public hearing, which would take place in January or February. Then the next thing we talked about was the Outfall project, which is progressing very well and on schedule. And we are still anticipating construction in 2021. The third thing we talked about is actually on the agenda tonight, and it is about the 12th and Commercial Intersection Public Outreach website, which is an interactive website that has been unveiled, and public input is greatly encouraged, and we are receiving quite a bit, but we will learn more further on in the meeting tonight. The last thing we talked about is Waste Management has approached Public Works Committee about potentially doing every other week recycling instead of weekly. And so the Public Works Committee will have a presentation just to explore that idea to see if it's worth pursuing further and if we want to bring it to council once we learn more about it. So still very tentative at this point. And that's it. Thanks.
Mayor Gear, it's Steve Hoagland. Mayor?
Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we get off Mayor Council communication, it occurs to me that Resolution 3000, which extended the COVID-related council procedures and other items related to COVID-19, expires on December 31st of this year. So we are seeking some direction on further action regarding COVID temporary procedures. Next Monday, a week from today, would be our last opportunity to do something within the calendar year. We could bring back a resolution extending or other actions, but I wanted to bring that up before we got too far along.
All right, any comments from the council?
Mayor Gear?
Yes, Ms. Wilson.
Is that something we could simply do tonight?
Is there any reason why we can't do it tonight?
Mayor Gear,
Mr. Walters?
if we're meeting again, why don't we do up a resolution with a number and some text? I think that would be worthwhile. Also, I would suggest that it delete the hiring freeze from that resolution because we're, I guess, going to adopt a slightly different hiring freeze in the budget ordinance tonight.
All right.
Mayor Gear?
Yes, Mr. Miller?
Miller, yeah. So, yeah, I concur that we can wait till next week, and I recommend a 3-month extension, but I'm open to other ideas, and I also agree that pulling the hiring freeze language out of it makes sense.
Okay. Ms. Sweatman, do you have any comments?
No, I think Mr. Walters captured my concern, which was because this was set by resolution, it needs to be extended by resolution as well. So prepping one up for next Monday is reasonable, and we can work on it.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, so did I hear a 3-month extension proposed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hoagland. So now we'll move on to item 3, which is public comment. And I'm seeing who's here with us tonight. We have 6 guests. Would anyone like to speak to the council on something that is not on the agenda this evening? If you would like to, please raise your hand. Tom Glade. Go ahead, Tom. Welcome. Tom Glade, you need to turn your mic on.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This evening, I'd like to speak about the hearing examiner's decision. And I don't know whether it should come at this point in your meeting or at the agenda item.
No, it's public comment because we don't. Let's see. Are we doing something on the hearing examiner this evening? No, it's appropriate for you to do it now.
Okay. So this is regarding the hearing examiner's decision about our appeal of the CEPA checklist. And we appeal the checklist because for most of the questions for the checklist about the natural environments like earth, air, water, plants, animals, and environmental health, and land and shoreline, the CEPA checklist stated, the intent of this update is to provide an overall increase in environmental protections. When we reviewed the second draft of the proposed CAO, we thought a more accurate statement would have been the intent of this update is to provide an overall increase in development. In the hearing examiner's decision, the hearing examiner posits that the purpose of CEPA are accomplished when the environmental impacts of a proposed actions are mitigated below the threshold of significance, even if the mitigation is not identified in the CEPA checklist. Evergreen Islands has achieved this purpose through its CEPA appeal by prompting the city to make changes to the proposed CAO update that would be incorporated in the third draft. The hearing examiner acknowledged that the DNS would have become final absent such an appeal, and further would have become final had Evergreen Islands abandoned its appeal. Accordingly, it must be stressed that this appeal was by no means frivolous, and the hearing examiner appreciates the concerns raised by Evergreen Islands. Both Mr. Loring for Evergreen Islands and Ms. Swettenham for the city ably presented their clients in this matter such that interested members of the public likely learned a great deal about historic and ongoing environmental protection efforts in the city of Anacortes, specifically and how the CEPA review process occurs more generally. That's my comments. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Glade. Is there any member of the audience who would like to speak to us on something not on the agenda tonight? Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Our phone-in caller, they had their hand raised at the beginning of the meeting, but I lowered it. Caller, if you wanted to speak, you press star 9 to re-raise your hand, okay? Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't...
I appreciate that, Mr. Coughlin. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now move out of public comment, and we'll move into item 4, our consent agenda. Council, what is your pleasure?
Here. I'd like to pull the capital facilities plan update, item 4D.
All right.
Mayor here.
Mr. McDougall.
I move to approve items 4A, B, C, and E.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. McDougall and a second by Mr. Young to approve consent agenda items 4A, B, C, and E. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Mayor here.
Mr. Walters?
I think because we have ordinances on the agenda, we need to take a roll call vote.
All right. So Ms. Hunt, would you take the vote?
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Walters?
Yes.
Ms. Moulton?
Yes.
Mr. McDougall?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Consent agenda items A, B, C, and E are approved.
Thank you, Ms. Hunt. Okay, Mr. Walters, item 4D, ordinance 3080.
Ordinance 3080 is the proposed capital facilities plan update, and the packet item at my request, includes the text of the capital facilities plan items. But it also includes 2 copies of the ordinance and then another table. So what I would like to propose is that we clarify this a little bit and also modify Section 2. Section 2 of the ordinance says that the 2021-2026 capital facilities plan, as established by the City Council and made available for distribution to the general public through the office of the City Clerk Treasurer, is hereby adopted, a copy of which is hereto adopted by reference. I don't want there to be any lack of clarity over what is on the capital facilities plan. So I propose that what Section 2 say is the 2021-2026 capital facilities plan shown in the attachment is hereby adopted. I think that that is quite a bit simpler and makes it very clear that that's what we're adopting, not anything else that is in an office someplace. So I move that we adopt the ordinance as shown in the packet, starting on page 4, that second copy of the ordinance that's in the packet, with the following revised text for Section 2. The 2021-2026 capital facilities plan shown in the attachment A, or in the attachment rather, is hereby adopted.
We have a motion.
Mayor Gear,
Ms. Molson.
I move that we adopt ordinance number 3080 with the amendment proposed by Mr. Walters.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Molson, a second by Mr. Walters. Is there comment? Mr. Miller, did I hear you?
I was going to second the motion.
Okay. All right. So, Ms. Hunt, did you capture Mr. Walters' language on that?
Yes, we'll revise the face of the ordinance accordingly. Thank you, Mr. Walters.
Would you take the vote, Ms. Hunt?
Mr. Walters?
Yes.
Ms. Moulton?
Yes.
Mr. McDougall?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Congratulations, Council. We now have a new budget, 2021 budget, and a 2021 and 2026 capital facilities plan. Thank you for all your work in the last 3 months on this. The citizens are well served by your diligence. The next item is item 5A. This is open for public comment. This is Commercial Avenue Complete Street Project, Phase 1, 11th to 13th Street. This is a virtual public house presentation. And Mr. Buckenmeyer, I believe, is going to open this up, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council, members of the public. Tonight, we're having a presentation to unveil, I guess, our website that we have developed that's designed to solicit public input on the 12th and commercial project. As everyone's aware, the inability that we all have experienced to have in-person meetings has challenged us with finding new methods to inform and involve the public in all the things that we do. So before I introduce the project team, I just wanted to explain that, and I did this at the Public Works Committee also, that tonight's presentation and discussion is to introduce the website and to get some input on this approach, this virtual approach to public comments, and to encourage the public and the City Council to visit that website and to make comments there. It's not necessarily, tonight's not necessarily designed to get input or to answer questions on the project. Like Is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? How much is it going to cost? Where's it going to be? Those are the kind of things that we want folks to go to the website and ask those questions and get and put their input in there. But tonight's more of a, hey, here's a website, here's how it works, and encourage folks to use that. Or if council sees a way that it could be improved, if mayor and council see that a way that the website could be improved, or something of that nature. So with that, I want to introduce Tim Holman, who you see on the screen there. Tim's with our engineering division. He's our project lead, our city's project lead on the project. And Brandon Gonzalez, I hope is here. I don't see him, but I hope he's here this evening. He's a senior planning associate with Alta Planning and Design, and he's here to kind of lead us through the website. Also, Eric Scharbeck, our city engineer, who's been instrumental in this, could not be here this evening. So with that, Tim, or...
And then to the participants, I'll let them give their presentation, and then I'll take public comment. I see a couple of hands up.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Mr. Gonzalez is in there. Can we get Matt to promote him to presenter so that he can give his presentation?
That would be great. Is he Zoom too, or the phone number?
Yeah, which one is he?
He raised his hand.
We have a phone number.
He says he's Zoom 2.
Zoom 2. Okay, good.
You should be coming in as a panelist now.
Yep, there he is. Welcome, Brandon.
Hey, everybody. I'm sorry about that. Using a company Zoom, and I thought it would say also planning and design, not just Zoom 2. All right, do you want me to go ahead and get started, Tim? All right, well, it's good to be here with everybody. I heard it was snowing and pretty dreary in Seattle. I'm visiting family for a few weeks in New Mexico, and this is the background of a photo I took this weekend, so hope you're jealous of the sunshine just a little bit. So thanks again. It's great to be here. Like Fred said, basically tonight what I want to do is give a little bit of an overview on the website that we launched about 2 weeks ago. We've been getting some really, really great feedback. We're up to over 100 comments just in the past week and a half. I'm getting, on average, 10 to 15 comments a day, which is really fantastic. Really good feedback that's coming in. So at the future meeting in February, we're really excited to kind of share and walk through some of that information and the feedback with you. But real quick, before I dive into the overview or the website, I just wanted to let you know what we've been up to over the past year, since it was almost exactly a year ago that we came to council, had a public meeting in person back in those days. And essentially over the past several months, we've been going through an evaluation of a couple different alternatives. We've been conducting traffic analyses since we heard from council that, really the impacts on traffic was going to be a major consideration for any kind of recommendation moving forward. So we've completed that traffic analysis. And we are currently in the process of going through WSDOT review. It's called Intersection Control Evaluation, or ICE. And essentially what this review is doing is it's providing a lot of the different traffic analyses, background, and a couple of different options that are being evaluated for WSDOT to give us a preliminary yay or nay on any of those concepts. And I want to be really clear on what you see on the website in terms of the alternatives. Those are not engineering alternatives at this point yet. These are conceptual alternatives. And so WSDOT is essentially giving us a yay or nay to proceed forward into detailed design on whichever alternative we move forward with. So just for the public and for council, just to know that what we have on the website are high-level concepts that we're moving forward with at this stage. We have not gotten into the details of design just yet. So with that, I would just want to kind of turn over. I'm going to share my screen with you and walk through the website as a little bit of a show and tell. And hopefully this will also be informative to anybody in the public who's watching to get a little bit of a background on the website. But the website, really the purpose of it is to provide information on the project. It's to provide the context for why this project exists, what are some of the things that we're looking at and evaluating. It's meant to be a center for resources so that the public can go and look at the resource tab and see a lot of the information to hopefully inform them a little bit on, some of the terminology and the technical aspects of the project. And then also we put in some information on just the historical context of Anacortes, Commercial Avenue. Just because it has been a dynamic corridor that has changed over time, and this is the next phase of its development. So, with that, let me pull up my screen really quickly, making sure everybody can see the website. So the first page of the website is essentially it's our homepage, and this is just a very high-level overview as to what you're going to see and what types of information are contained in the website itself. We're really excited that we have a few videos. The kickoff video is from Mayor Gear, so thank you, Mayor, for being willing to do a kickoff introduction video for us. And again, this is really just an introductory page. The next one gets a little bit more substantive. So our About page. Like I mentioned, we have a segment on history of Anacortes, and you can click through some fun historical images of Commercial Avenue as it's developed throughout the past 100+ years, with some fun kind of historical tidbits about the pictures that you're seeing, and you can watch it sort of progress through the decades up until the image of today. So we hopefully that helps to convey that there has been a dynamic and ever-changing corridor. As you scroll down just a little bit, we provide some context. So this is really the section where we get into why are we doing this particular project? What is the purpose of this particular project? And so again, I'd encourage everybody to take a look at that information. A little technical glitch. It's my computer related. Let's try this. I have a backup just in case that happened. I've been having some computer. So this segment right here is essentially, it is this web map. So the great thing about the web map is the public can zoom in, play around a little bit, just kind of see what the limits of our corridor, of our study area and project are. And then off on the left, you see there's barriers and challenges. So what the public can do is you just click on a button, and then you can drop it somewhere. And then you can put your name or hit anonymous, and you can add, whatever barrier that you have or a comment that you want to add at that point. And then I'll show you in a moment, but the great thing is that everyone can see it and they can interact with it. And so you can also draw in your walking route. So if you're trying to cross from one side of Commercial Avenue to another, people can draw in the routes that they currently would take and they feel are the safest for them to do so. And then up here at the top of this, you can click Show Comments, and anybody can see all of the comments that the public has been adding. So I'll just click on this. You can see that there's some safety concerns that people have been adding here. And so just to give you an example, so somebody commented that the arch and signage are lovely. It's a shame that it really doesn't function as a crosswalk. So this, tells us that maybe there's some improvements that need to happen here in terms of crosswalk as part of design. And then you can see somebody liked that comment. So people can come in, they can respond to the comment. It's typically always civil, which is great, and you can like or dislike. So this is a really great feature. And then at the end of the day, we can kind of summarize and take a look at what the public has been adding. And all of these different lines that you see on here are individual routes that people have drawn in on the ways that they walk and bike through the area. So it's a really great feature, and we're excited to kind of consolidate the results of this and share it later. So
yes, go ahead.
When I have clicked to add a barrier, it asks what type of point am I adding, and the only option is barriers to walking and biking. Is that by design?
Yes, Councilman Walters, it is by design because of the focus being on active transportation for this particular project. It's really the primary focus is on walking and biking. However, it would be very easy to add, another barrier if you have something specific in mind.
Yeah, I was just thinking that it would be useful, assumedly, for people to communicate what their problems are when trying to navigate the intersection in a car.
Okay, that is not a problem. We can add that pretty easily. All right, thanks for the feedback on that. So moving on, then we get into the background. This is, again, just specifically of over the past 5 years or so, what have been the various steps that have led us to this particular project. Again, I won't walk through all of this, but it's just a nice summary of all of the different things that have been happening from receiving the grant funding from WashDOT to kick off the planning study, completing the planning study, doing some additional work, and now commencing with the actual design of the two block segments. And then down at the bottom, we were really excited to have Councilwoman Moulton and then Bonnie Bowers provide videos for us, essentially talking about, kind of a pedestrian perspective and some of the safety concerns, and then also from the perspective of a cyclist and the cycling community on what the intersection and what the project means to them. So by all means, please go and check out those videos. So then moving on into the alternatives section, or alternatives page. So we have 3 different scenarios that we are evaluating at a high level. Scenario 1, which is the no action scenario. Scenario 2, which is the traditional intersection, and essentially that means just keeping the traditional intersection, no roundabout, but having bike ped improvements. And then the final scenario 3 is a roundabout improvement that coincides with bike ped improvements. So again, you can read through a lot of the information in here, but we kind of summarize it in text, hopefully in a way that the public, the general public, can really understand. And then each scenario has a table summary that you can see some of the various implications of a number of different criteria in that scenario. So again, the no action view. Then we move into the scenario 2, which is that traditional intersection. Again, you can see a lot of the text that accompanies it with the table of some of the different elements and different impacts, which we'll be coming back to talk through in more detail in February. And then just a rendering of what that might look like. Again, not engineering design, these are conceptual designs.
Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Young.
Just a quick question for Brandon and the team. Over the course of this past week, I've received a number of phone calls from constituents out and about. And one of the questions was, is there a provision if there are additional ideas to be brought forward? Meaning, are we only going to choose from these 3? Or if there's an idea that is a worthy idea, something that's doable, can that person, constituent, just sort of put that idea out on the table?
That's a great question, Councilman Young. So at a high level, what we're looking at and what we're going through is getting approval from WashDOT to either assess the traditional intersection or the roundabout. But the next phase, which is really when we start getting into the kind of details of design, that's where we would be moving into, if they have ideas that they want to share with us, essentially, we could look at how to best incorporate, that feedback and what we're hearing from them into that actual design itself.
Great answer. One more piece to that question. So there is a provision in the feedback section of this website for individuals to add additional ideas to the table that may not already be, being considered.
Yes, sir. I'll show you really quickly while you have that comment up. At the bottom of every page, and then I'll show you in a second, you can click the Let Us Know, and it'll take you to a comment page where you can send in comments. And we've been receiving a lot of very detailed comments, which is fantastic.
Excellent. That's exactly what I needed, and thank you very much.
Thank you. So moving on then, the final scenario 3 is the roundabout design. Again, same format. There's a lot of information that you can read through along with the table summary. And then at a high level conceptual design, here is what that potential roundabout might look like. And this is the one that I just want to clarify for just a second. We're proposing, at least as part of the evaluation through WashDOT, a 1-lane roundabout. But there are ongoing discussions as to how big the actual radius of this roundabout might be. So I just want to make sure for anybody watching that this is a conceptual alternative that we're evaluating with WashDOT, but there's a lot of variables that would go into how big that roundabout would be at the end of the day. And then let's see, moving down to the bottom, you have scenario comparison. I won't click play because I don't know how good the quality will be over Zoom, but take a look at this. And I want to make also just the point that this is based on the actual traffic volumes. So this is a technically accurate simulation in terms of it being based on traffic data and evaluation. So this isn't just a simulation that was sort of created for fun. It really does have some technical backing to it. And it shows the difference of motion of movement from a traditional intersection and a roundabout.
Mayor Gear?
Ms. Moulton?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. This is really nifty, this whole website. I have two questions. One is when you're doing sort of the real traffic analysis from real traffic numbers, would this be, for example, on a Friday afternoon of a holiday weekend, people heading out to the ferry, or a Sunday, people coming back? Does it account for those sorts of times?
Great question. So this is PM peak. So this does account for kind of the busiest average time of kind of that commute period. And then one of the things that makes this intersection unique is that we have the ferry queues and traffic coming off of the ferry. So one of the things that we accounted for, particularly in the movements from 12th Street down to turning south on Commercial Ave, is that a lot of the traffic that comes off the ferry tends to be all at sort of the same time. And so we get a different type of traffic implications from that type of situation than generally what we see from the onboarding of traffic, which may be a little bit heavier, but isn't necessarily just the rush all at once like we have when traffic is exiting the ferry. So it does include those factors.
Great. Okay, and I seem to remember, I don't remember if it was last fall or last spring, but there was an interactive website then as well. This seems to me to be far more complex and involved, but if someone had contributed their input to the previous website, what would be their encouragement for doing it again?
Another great question. So let me go back and hopefully I don't have any errors, but back to the about. So this web map, actually, when you click the show comments, anybody who added, this is the same web map that we used previously. So any comments that anyone provided, 8 months ago or so, are actually contained within the web map itself. And so that was the primary way that we were soliciting feedback. So essentially, we're just building upon that. No comments were lost, with the new website.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Brandon, this is Tim. Can I chip in one thing on the scenario comparison side-by-side video? I was watching it again today, and I wanted to point out, if you look carefully, that scenario comparison also includes pedestrians. So you can actually see pedestrian traffic interacting with the cars on the video.
Thanks for pointing that out, Tim. All right. So moving on, the summary page for the alternatives, it gives you how the three different scenarios can stack up against each other. Again, it's some of it's quantifiable and some of it is a little bit kind of more untangible, but it gives you an idea of how again the three scenarios stack up. So then moving on to the next page, pretty simple one. This is schedule and next steps. So we created a timeline that the public can go through and look at, a lot of the various phases. So again, we're really early, just in the first phase on alternatives assessment and conceptual design. We're coming to council in February with a lot more detailed information and to really have a chance to have some great discussions around the alternatives, and also to give an overview of public input. And then from that point, we go into preliminary design. And again, the first part of preliminary design is where we still have the opportunity to really think about, different kind of design elements that we want to incorporate and kind of have some more additional public input on that point. And then we get into the final engineering design, which we're aiming for the latter part of 2021 or the mid and latter part of 2021. And then construction would be at some point in 2022. And we were aiming for a bid in late 2021. And then finally, the last, or I guess second to last page is resources. This is really just a compilation of some photos, some different videos to show how, for roundabouts, since most people are a little bit unfamiliar with how cycling and pedestrians work in a roundabout, some videos there. And then for nerds like me that you want to get a little bit more into some of the technical aspects, we have links to a lot of different kind of technical design criteria for people to dive through and check out at their own pace. And we can keep adding to these resources anytime we want to do that over the course of the project. And then finally, the Connect page. And again, this gets back to a previous question. You can enter in your email, name, phone, and then comment, and these come directly to me. So I am receiving all of the comments, and like I said, we're getting a bunch of them, which is great. And you can tell there's a lot of interest in the community and a lot of people who are not afraid to offer a lot of detailed solutions, which I also think is pretty great to read through and see the kind of technical backgrounds of people as they're commenting. So with that, that's the overview of the website. Again, we'll be coming back in February to answer more detailed questions, but are there any other questions I can answer on the website?
Mayor Gear. Who was first? I'm sorry.
Mr. Walters and Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
One of the videos of the Dutch-style roundabouts shows a roundabout with a lot more vegetation outside the center circle. Have we looked at an option like that? And can you talk maybe a little bit about why they have constructed the roundabout that way?
Sure. So just for clarification, we're not proposing a full Dutch-style roundabout as part of our design. It's not something that we're seeing really comprehensively in the United States. So there's only one or two examples. But what we're proposing, and we're just showing this because there's a lot of interactions between vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists that are demonstrated in these videos that still apply to the roundabout if that's the option at 12th and Commercial. So just wanted to clarify that. And so in general, what we like with these Dutch-style kind of concepts is that you're not throwing cyclists into the travel lanes as they're going through the roundabout. You keep a separate facility all the way around the roundabout for cyclists and pedestrians. And so that's the major differentiator, is that we actually have that incorporated pretty well. And then the reason for the landscaping is essentially you want a bigger barrier between that center roundabout and the bike facility, essentially. Because just like you kind of see where that van is stopped right before it's entering into the roundabout, or the cyclist portion of the roundabout, you want to have some space for a vehicle to be able to yield for pedestrians or cyclists as they're going around without completely stopping the flow of traffic behind them. So that's kind of the main reason for that vegetation that you see around here. We haven't gotten into the details of that design because, to be honest, we haven't really come to the decision on that being our recommendation. We're still doing the analysis, the assessment, and so we really haven't gotten into that level of design for a roundabout at this point.
Mr. Miller.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Great presentation. I just wanted to reemphasize Mr. Walters' point of we're taking inputs for walking, biking, and driving. I know there's a very important emphasis on pedestrian and biking safety, but the majority of my constituents are driving their cars through that intersection. So I just want to emphasize that to make sure we're taking those comments as well. And then on the web link, as I navigate through the city's website, I know we open up with the city news and it's COVID. You have to kind of navigate through to Public Works in order to get to this good information. So maybe we might want to have staff take a look at putting it some sort of banner on our header website, at least for a short period of time, so we can make sure we get the maximum amount of public comment we can on this. That's it.
Thank you. Any other questions for Brandon?
Mayor Gear?
Mr. Walters.
I think Mr. Miller's point there is a good one. That's certainly a recurring problem with surfacing new content on the city's website. Are we looking at any lighting improvements as part of these scenarios, or is that just too detailed at this point? Because it seems to me that, especially at night, when lighting is important, lighting is inadequate at this location.
Illumination would definitely be part of design and engineering, but at this stage, we have not gotten into those details.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mayor Gear, this is Tim. I wanted to share one more thing. I just wanted to put in, since this is our public process for this project, I wanted to reiterate that we're going to keep this website up through the whole life of the project, but as far as the actual public comment goes, it's going to be open from now until we come back to you, to the council on February 1st. So now is, the time is of the essence for people to get in. We're going to leave it open for a couple months. It's been up for a while. It's going to be open for over another month. And although there will be still opportunity to add comment, now is the best time to get your comments in.
Okay.
Mayor Gear?
Mr. Walters.
So I definitely think that we need to capture those comments about traffic through the roundabout, because most people who are interacting with this intersection, I think, are in their cars. And obviously we want to get more people out of their cars, and being pedestrians in this area is a little sketchy. And I would avoid it if I were on a bike, but bikes have the right to go through this intersection as well. But at the end of the day, if we select something other than no action, I also want it to be an improvement for cars. So I want to make sure that we've captured all of those comments and address them in some way at the conclusion of this comment period. Not necessarily to make the improvements that people might comment about, because not all of them might be possible, but to ensure that we've addressed them in some way and appropriately weighted them. I am enthused about the idea of improving this intersection, because I really don't like it now. I think it is really suboptimal now. But for cars, let alone for pedestrians and bicyclists. So I'm enthusiastic about the project, but I don't want our enthusiasm for improvements for the multimodal aspect of it obscure the potential improvements for vehicle traffic as well.
Mayor Gear?
Mr. Young.
Just to echo, the sentiment we've heard from council tonight, I think it's been a wonderful presentation. I guess my look at this as we move forward will be through the prism of, this is a major intersection of traffic and commerce, and that is a little bit different than a side street or, other places where the work between biking and walking is the pedestrian right-of-way. I guess my concern would be to make sure that we have a flow of traffic and that it recognizes that this is really a business route, while making sure that pedestrians and have safety. So I just didn't want the intermodal traffic of it being a commercial artery for our city and our island and the other islands to get lost in this whole process. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Mayor Gear?
Ms. Moulton.
I concur with the comments of other council members. It is very much a car-dominated intersection, and that is one of the reasons that the city has received funding to improve this intersection, is because a pedestrian was hit and killed here. So I think that's also something to bear in mind, and we need to consider all users, and I think it is a tricky balance, but it's one that I am confident that we can achieve.
Thank you, Ms. Moulton. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Holman, any other thing else you want to present tonight?
No, I think I just want to thank Brandon for coming tonight and providing this presentation. Thank you, Brandon.
Of course, yeah, good to be here.
Really well done. Mr. Buckemeyer, any comments?
Nope, great presentation, exactly what I wanted to what I wanted to accomplish. Thank you.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing how this progresses. And at this time, then, if there's no further comments. Oh, wait. Comments from the audience. This new screen. Let's see who I've got. We do have one caller. Phone number ending in 931. You may speak now. You're showing being muted. Matt, can you help them?
Caller, in order to unmute yourself, you're going to need to press *6.
Okay.
All right, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Douglas Thurber. This is a really important issue for me. It really gets me excited, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I became fairly experienced with the different options a number of months ago when you had a number of city council meetings and also an open house. And I talked to a number of people about this issue in the interim. As I recall, some of the numbers on this were that it was these projects were coming in around $5 to $5.5 million, and that the city was going to ask Washington Department of Transportation to provide approximately $2 million under the auspices or under the reason of making this area safer for pedestrians. And my first comment is to hopefully that safety is not driving this project, because we talked about one fatality. Carolyn mentioned it. It wasn't really at the intersection of 12th and Commercial. It was more toward the arch. It was one isolated event that happened around, I think, 2:30 in the morning. There was no other traffic. There was a truck and a woman walking, and both of them apparently were not paying attention. It was poorly lit at the time. And that accident could have happened in any intersection in this town. So I think that asking the Washington Department of Transportation to provide money for this project for safety, I think is a specious argument, and I don't really think it should be done. Now, there's a number of things, and I just lost my clock, so can you return that to me? Okay, thank you. Neither one of these proposals really reach the core problems of traffic in this town. One is to get trucks from our avenue efficiently onto 12th and onto Oaks to go to the ferry. We have an issue where we have tanker trucks and lumber trucks and all of that destroying the ambiance of the business area up on Commercial, because all of these large vehicles are going up there. We want trucks to come down R, and now any type of expenditure that we're talking about, millions of dollars, needs to solve that problem. There needs to be a corridor for these large vehicles. There was a meeting this summer with the mayor and a number of people in front of City Hall, and that meeting had to be stopped several times because of the noise of large trucks going down R and then turning by City Hall, by the newspaper, and the post office and whatnot. So we need to address that problem if we're going to spend $3 million, and neither one of these proposals touches on that issue. The next reason that both of these proposals are not hitting the mark is that there's been numerous meetings about having a pedestrian experience and corridor, not going north and south, but indeed going east and west. In other words, from Commercial down to the marina area. The marina is one of our main attractions, but we don't have a pedestrian experience corridor down there. So both of these issues address a north-south solution, but actually they're not solutions to this major problem that would help our town to go east and west. Now let me talk about bicycling. Bicycling should be encouraged on O and R, not on Commercial. it's simply a lot safer. I ride both a pedal bike and also an electric bike. And believe me, I tried to go on R and O because they're a lot more comfortable. There's less cars. There's less parked cars to open doors in front of you, etc. So to encourage bicycling in the middle of our major traffic spot in the town, I think is encouraging it in the wrong place.
Thank you, Doug.
Am I out of time? I don't have the clock in front of me.
Yeah, you ran out.
I am. Thank you. I'll talk more on the issue. Thank you for your opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for being here tonight. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else who would like to talk about traffic? All right. So now we'll move on to item 5B, which is our Cdbg and Skagit Community Foundation Grant Award Update. This is discussion with possible action, and this also is open for public comment. Welcome, Mr. Miesemer.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and the public. So as many of you know, the Community Development Block Grant Program has been in place in Anacortes for many years, and that's provided by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Our typical grant amount is right around $100,000 a year, averages between $100,000 to $115,000. And so this year, early in the year, because of COVID-19, city staff amended our CDBG action plan to use our yearly funding amount for small business stabilization grants. And so at the same time we were amending that, the city received the CDBG CARES funding of $60,000. So together with the $100,000, $160,000 total for small business stabilization grants. With that amount, we were able to help 14 applicants for a total of $136,080, and about 78 full-time and part-time jobs were saved, at least temporarily, if not permanently. And that was working through a total of 51 applications. We put together a committee from the community. That committee reviewed the applications and recommended those that should receive funds. So we also funded through the CDBG CV funding food bank assistance for community action, $8,100 some. And then we have also some funds from a previous year that was not expended of $57,890. It was decided to use that funding through the Anacortes Family Center for rental assistance. And with that rental assistance program, I think we have used, I think it's $49,913, and we have assisted 19 families to help them stay in their homes. So we also were awarded some funding from Skagit Community Foundation of $99,000, and then Rotary provided $2,500. And so with that $101,500, we provided 18 businesses with funding from a total of 30 applications. So what I'm trying to express here is that the work that the HUD money has provided for our community, I think, has been very useful. We recently received a third round of funding from HUD, and that's $110,324. And that has the same regulations as the previous CV assistance from HUD. And so what that means is that 51% of the employees would have to meet the 80%, below 80% area median income for low income, moderate income folks. So as we start moving forward with this second shutdown for our businesses, city staff have been looking at our businesses, Commercial Avenue, South, and downtown, and I've had several conversations with our businesses. And it's my opinion that these businesses are in dire need and could use another small stimulus package of small business stabilization grants. So what we're hoping for is that council would give us some direction on that. There are different options for the use of that money. HUD has lifted the 15% cap on public services, so we could use more of that money for public services, such as rental assistance and things like that. We also have, from that $160,000 initial small business grant program, $23,900 left over. We have been having conversations with Mr. Eric Johnson and with the Family Center in regards to using that particular funding for a cold weather shelter. And we're still trying to work through some of the details on that. There are some insurance requirements and other risk areas that we need to have a conversation with our city attorney, Ms. Swetnam, on before that money is expended. So for us to use this money, what staff is recommending is to use $110,000 for small business grants, and then the $23,920 for the cold weather shelter. We would have to amend our CDBG action plan, and that takes a 5-day public comment period. So we actually have already prepared an amendment. We're ready to go with it. We would have to put that in the paper, and we could actually get applications for the business grants on the street the week of January 5. So again, staff recommends using the $100,000 for the small business grants and the $23,920 for the cold weather shelter. And I'm hoping that the council would give us direction by motion this evening to do such.
Well, okay, before council interacts, why don't we see if any of the panelists want to comment on this? Do we have anybody in the audience that would like to comment tonight? If you do, please put your hand up. All right, I'm not seeing anyone. Okay, no comments from the audience. All right, then we'll go back to Mr. Meismer, and you've asked the council to consider taking action this evening.
Mayor Gear?
Yes, Mr.
Mayor Gear.
And Mr. McDougall.
Question for Mr. Meismer. Is there any provision or any deference given to downtown businesses that have not already received funding or made application to funding? The reason I'm bringing that up is that I happen to be speaking with the lady that owns the gift shop downtown, one of the gift shops, and I asked her had she made any application, and she was telling me how with just her having to lay people off or having just her working and now roof issues as all of this has started, she has been running hitherto and obviously in bad straits as well. And so I was just wondering if there were any provisions built into this for people who may not have already received any funding to be able to apply and get some type of deference for it.
Mr. Young, thank you for the question. In my opinion, yes. For those that have not made applications, I would say those would be put at the top of our list.
Mr. McDougall.
Actually, thank you, Mr. Young, for the question. Mine is really quite similar, actually. Mr. Meismer, can you remind council as well as the community, like what the kind of rough outlines for qualifications for the last round of funding were, such that folks have an idea of basically qualifications for this round?
Absolutely, Mr. McDougall. Thank you. So the first round of CDBG funding for the small business grants, applicants needed to have 51% of their employees be of low income, including their families. The second round with the community grant was they just needed to show need, whatever need they had out in front of them. For instance, it could be that they needed some money to help pay their lease or purchase goods for a restaurant or business. This particular round, the HUD folks have lowered the requirements a little bit. And so if you're a business owner and it's just yourself, as long as you can show that you're of low income, 80% of the median income, Skagit County through HUD, then you qualify.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mayor Gear? Thank you, Mr. Miesemer, for qualifying that, because I think some businesses in the first round, it was a more difficult process to apply, and this simplifies it somewhat. So I would encourage businesses that were put off the first time to maybe give it another try. I have one question and one comment. My question is, Governor Inslee had announced funding for small businesses. Is that something that would potentially come through the city as well as state money?
Thank you, Ms. Moulton. I would hope so. I've been keeping an eye on the governor's website and on their news releases. I haven't seen anything yet about how they're going to administer that. In previous CARES funding through the state, it has come through the Department of Commerce for small business loans.
Okay, thank you. My comment is I would just like to give kudos to Joanne Stewart of our planning department. She was one of the first people in the nation to develop a CARES funding small business stabilization grant application, and it has been duplicated in communities as far away as Florida. So I just want to say thanks to Joanne for doing such a great job with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Council, what's your pleasure?
Here.
Mr. Walters.
Could we hear anything more about the cold weather shelter, including from Mr. Johnson, if he wanted to comment?
His hand went up. Yes, Mr. Johnson, welcome.
I just wanted to hear his voice.
We miss you, Mr. Johnson.
Well, thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here, Mayor Gear, and thank you, Mr. Miesemer. Am I speaking now, or am I talking to myself?
Speaking, we can hear you.
Well, for gunny sacks, thanks. I'll just tell you a quick who, what, where, when, and how of the cold weather shelter. The cold weather shelter who is the Anacortes Family Center and the Salvation Army and the Anacortes Human Services Coalition, Health Coalition, providing the like a tripartite effort to house people in the cold. The cold weather shelter will be held at the Holiday Motel, and there's a couple of RV park sites we're using at Washington Park as well. It was running from Thanksgiving until the Ides of March. The Anacortes Family Center is the agency that's vetting the clients that come in, so they know who everyone is and who has the greatest needs and who has the needs. The Salvation Army is providing food, and then the Anacortes Community Health Council, is the one that's providing the overall oversight of the program. It's a fairly straightforward. We reckon we'll use for 111 days for 3 rooms. It's going to cost $18,315 for the Holiday Motel, another $3,060 for the spots in Washington Park, and then there's incidentals for paper plates and bamboo utensils because there's no place to really wash plates and forks and that sort of thing in the motel itself. So that in a nutshell is what we're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for your continued service to the community. Any questions for Mr. Johnson? Okay, Council.
Mayor Gear.
Mr. Walters.
I'm not sure exactly what type of action Mr. Miesemer is requesting, except a head nod.
Is that what you need?
And that would be sufficient.
All right. Okay, I see 1 head, 2 heads, 3 heads. Mr. Miller, are you nodding your head?
Mr. Carter is.
Mr. Carter is. Mr. Miller? I don't think you can hear me.
Yeah. I am.
All right. So I think you got all a unanimous head nod there, at least the majority.
Hey, Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Miller.
Yeah, sorry, I was having technical issues. Yes, you have a head nod from me.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, Mr. Meismer, get to work and help us get that. Is there any other comments from the community? All right, so we'll move on then. Item 5C. This is also open for public comment. This is a hearing examiner report. This is a discussion item. And Mr. Meismer, are you introducing this?
Yes, Mayor, I am. First of all, thank you, Mayor and council members and public. And also, council members, thank you for directing us to begin the process on that small business grant program. So, Anacortes Municipal Code, Chapter 2.20.100, requires a report from the hearings examiner each year at the end of the year. And so for the period of 2020, there was only one project that went before the hearings examiner, and that was the Evergreen Islands SEPA appeal that Mr. Glade spoke about earlier in the meeting. Prior to that, in 2017, there was a variance which was denied, and that was a request for a rear yard variance from 20 foot to 0, I think it was. And so we wanted to make sure and get this report to the council. You can see in the report, the hearing examiner has made some recommendations in perhaps using the hearing examiner in more decision-making processes, such as quasi-judicial land use permits and so forth. But with that, I think perhaps now might be a good time to introduce Mr. Andrew Reeves from Sound Law Group, who represents the hearings examiner. Mr. Reeves, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Mr. Reeves.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, just to clarify, we recognize that an annual report is called for back in 2017 in March is when we first were brought on as the city's hearing examiner, and we were not sure how much work there would be, and there was very little, and we kind of thought, okay, 2017 is not a full year, we won't do a report, and then we assumed we were going to have more work, and we didn't until this year. So we did include information in the short report about both matters we've heard, the recent appeal, as well as that earlier variance, as Director Meismer pointed out. And in terms of, well, I guess first off, the intent tonight, I think, was not to speak specifically about any particular matter, but just in case there's questions, perhaps Darcy Swetnam could tell me if there is any LUPA appeal pending on the matter that we just decided. I think that would be good to know.
Okay, Ms. Swetnam, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Reeves. The city has not been served with a LUPA appeal on the matter.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. And Mr. Glade participated in that hearing, and he provided some comments earlier. He read some portions of the decision, and I think it pointed out that Ms. Swetnam and Evergreen Islands attorney had both done a really good job. We had 6 witnesses that participated in that hearing, and several members of the public that sat in and were able to watch, and we produced that decision earlier in the month. But just wanted to make sure in case anyone had a specific question. I think it's a little problematic to sort of explain reasoning or anything to that end, but general procedural questions I'd be happy to discuss. But one thing that became clear in this process of reviewing the critical areas ordinance update is that it looks as if there's a potential shift to having the hearing examiner hear more matters. And so on that procedural matter, I'd certainly be happy to answer any questions folks might have on what that might look like. And we also had, as part of our recommendation, and maybe this is already happening and the director would know best, but we just wanted to point out that consistency across the municipal code is probably desirable, as I'm sure everyone understands. So I think those were the sort of basic things. Like everyone, we've worked hard to figure out how to get work done this last year during COVID, and we work in about 45 jurisdictions, and so I've been holding Zoom hearings 1 or 2 a day, 4 or 5 days a week since about May. So, and I thought personally that the hearing we had recently via Zoom worked fairly well, technologically speaking. So those are my basic thoughts. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions about Sound Law Center, where I work, or sort of general procedural thoughts. But hopefully everyone got the report. It's brief to the extent that we haven't heard a lot, but we stand ready to serve the city in any way that we can. So, thanks, everybody.
Council, any questions for Mr. Reeves?
Mayor Gear.
Mr. Walters.
Well, thank you for the report, and I also appreciate the candor about, missing the last 3. But I'm wondering, first of all, if we have established a web page for the hearing examiner at this stage. We had talked about that briefly in the planning committee. Mr. Meismer?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Walters. So we are working on that. Ms. Stewart's been working with Ms. Hunt, and I'm hoping that we'll have something set up at the first of the year, and it will be basically just a hearings examiner page.
Okay, so I look forward to that. The municipal code does establish the hearing examiner to be independent of any city department, board, and commission. So I think it's important that it be very independent from the planning department, and it doesn't serve only functions related to the planning department. So I think it's useful to clearly identify the hearing examiner's role. And, in the future, when we have 100,000 people in the city of Anacortes, maybe we'll have a full-time employee hearing examiner. But for the near term, I think contract hearing examiner is most likely in our future. And I think that has potentially a lot of value because that contract hearing examiner, including Mr. Reeves, is familiar with a lot of different jurisdictions and familiar with how a lot of people do things. And I think it might be really valuable to reach out to Mr. Reeves as and the rest of Sound Law Center, as we explore what public hearings are going to look like in 2021 and beyond. Phil Obrecht, who's also a renowned hearing examiner for a lot of jurisdictions, recently did a webinar on MRSC and AWC about how the new world of work is going to extend to public hearings as well. And why not continue, as Mr. Reeves mentions in the hearing examiner's report, why not continue opening up public hearings to people who either can't or don't want to attend in person? So I expect that we'll need to modify our procedures and probably formalize it through code amendments, but I really want us to fully explore that, not just our own thinking, but rely on others as well. So I'm looking forward to that. I also assume that all of our hearing examiner decisions should become part of that future webpage. I assume they'll be in Laserfish, but a link to the appropriate folder there I think would be great, because I think people should start being able to read those as they come down the pike. It's super important for us because if there's a decision that reflects poorly on a piece of municipal code, we should become aware of it and we should fix it. So I think that's one of the points of this report, but also the purpose behind getting all those decisions up onto the website for us to be able to look at and for the public to be able to read as well. So thank you for your report.
Yeah, and if I could just speak to Mr. Walters' comment, I recently taught our annual hearing examiner conference. We did it on Zoom, and in preparation for that, I spoke with, I think, 20 or 25 of the jurisdictions we work in to try to get some thoughts from planners, planning directors on what they thought was working, what wasn't working in terms of holding hearings remotely, and also to try to get some thoughts on how they thought things would look in 2021. And I think one of the more surprising pieces of feedback that I received was how much planning staff seemed to like how it was working, and they actually thought that there was increased public participation in hearing examiner matters through the remote meetings, which surprised me, and it was interesting to hear. But I think it leads to the thought that in the future, some kind of hybrid system where folks could participate remotely, but then obviously would still, have an option of attending in person when we get back to that point in the world. I think that makes a lot of sense, and we'll kind of have to play it by ear and see what the governor and what the legislature ultimately decides. I'm hearing that there's some thoughts on changing OPMA requirements and other requirements long term to allow for Zoom. We'll just have to see what happens, but we are certainly aware that in the future a hybrid system seems likely, and we're happy to work tech-wise with the city moving forward, however they'd like to proceed. So thank you for that comment.
Thank you. We have a member of the audience that would like to comment. Mr. Glade, go ahead.
Thank you again. We appreciate Mr. Reeves' efforts in the latest effort with the critical areas ordinance, and while he denied our appeal, I think he came up with a fair and acceptable decision for us. So we support the hearing examiner. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Mr. Glade.
That's about the highest praise I can hope for.
Yes, that is.
So thank you, Mr. Glade.
All right. Anything else for Mr. Reeves this evening?
Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Young.
Just a comment, just to echo Mr. Walter's sentiment. I thought it was, just the idea of what we've learned because of COVID and because of technology. Much of what we thought coming into this pandemic and what we've learned in the middle of this pandemic, how working has changed. And I just think that it's a great idea to use that technology, but to be prepared for using part of this going forward. And so I really think that will be the wave of the future for us as well.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Reeves this evening? Well, thank you, Mr. Reeves, for joining us. Really appreciate it. Thank you for your service to the city.
Thank you very much. I will hop off, but thank you, everybody. Have a good evening, and thank you, Director Meismer.
All right.
Bye now.
All right, so the next item on our agenda is item 5D. This is open for public comment. This is Access Anacortes Fiber Internet Update discussion item this evening. Ms. Shu.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Pleased to present the December update on Access Anacortes Fiber Internet. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I did want to share that Mr. Lundberg is also on the line. If you have any questions, we're both happy to answer. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. There we go. All right. So 2020.
Now we see it. Okay, go ahead.
So 2020 has been a really exciting year in the fiber department, and I'm really proud of the team that we've built and the accomplishments that we've made. It certainly hasn't been without challenges, but I'm really pleased to share with you this next screen. This is just looking at month to month. To think that we had 9 customers back in March of 2020 and are sitting in mid-December at actually 464. They were able to squeeze in one additional installation today is just a real commitment of time and energy and thought, because I think we've been hit with just about every potential delay that could have happened with this process. We still have been able to move forward with it. So I'm very pleased that our monthly revenue has, in March was $1,191 per month, and it has increased to $32,302.25 per month. So we're starting to see our efforts by the revenue that is coming in as part of our monthly installation. We really couldn't have done this without the dedication of the team. I'm very proud of the team and the work that they're doing. As we're doing this during COVID, we are making every effort to provide a safe work environment for our employees and also for the homes that we're entering into. We know that you're putting a lot of trust in us to be able to come into the home, and we have 30 different guidelines that we're following every day with every single interaction that we're having. So just want to, remind people that we take this very seriously and are wanting to provide a safe home or business installation for you. This is just a look at our customer orders. We currently have 384 residential customers and 80 business customers. What I'm most pleased with is our take rate. So we've had been in service longer in the commercial business district, Old Town, and M Avenue, and we're sitting over 40% take rate. But in the areas that we're beginning to provide service to now, you can see that we've started to do the installations in areas 1 and 5. We're already at 136 orders, and that is steadily increasing. We have 142 orders in the second area that we'll be going into for those installations once the area 1 and 5 are primarily complete. So we currently have 691 orders that have been placed in all of the areas that we have service available. That's out of a total of 2,273 customers. So we're looking at a market penetration or a market share of 30.4% in the areas where we have service. I think that's really incredible in our first year of service. Just to give you an update, the 2020 construction area is coming, the construction is almost complete in every area. Section 1 and 5 is complete now, and those are the areas that we're spending the most of our time on the installation. Section 3, which is this little section here, is complete except for the splicing. That will occur in early January when they come back to do the splicing also in these two areas, 4 and 6. In aerial section 2, the splicers will be back in town tomorrow to complete that work. Part of it is already done now. So we are really moving forward. That construction is wrapping up quickly, so then we can follow up and work on the orders that we've received in those areas, and we'll continue to receive to increase that market. While we've been doing this, we've also been working on some special projects. And as we've reported previously, the NOAANET K-20 contract is in service. All 4 of the Samish Indian Nation sites that we did on an ad hoc basis are now in service. Chandler Square Retirement Center is in service. Allen Hospital has a dark fiber lease with the city. And Fidalgo Pool and Fitness Center has business class internet. In 2021, we have 2 new projects that we'll be working on. One is an ad hoc construction project at the Port of Anacortes' Bartholomew Road property. We will be working with them to do the construction of the fiber internet. And then the tenants that are in those areas will then actually sign up for regular business class internet service agreements. We also will have the Senior Activity Center in service in first quarter 2021. In 2021, you will notice that our expansion area has changed some. So I wanted to just have an opportunity to talk with you about that tonight. We have been working on an Economic Development Administration grant for work for 2021. The funding for that is likely, we're still moving forward with the funding in that project, but likely the funds would not be available for construction until late 2021. So in an attempt to be really nimble, we have moved our expansion area to 2021 to the west side of Anacortes. So basically, we would be providing service from Anacortes Mine Road west, following the city limits. We currently have the design work underway, have placed some material orders, and this will provide us with another 2,300 premises for us to pass. Our business plan presents us providing another 800 customers into service before the end of 2020. And interestingly, if we looked at a 35% take rate, this area alone would provide 805 potential installations at that lower threshold of 35% take rate. We are continuing to work with Savvy Bank for a line of credit funding that would require City Council approval following bond council analysis, and that will be coming to you at a later date. But for everyone in the West End that has been very excited about getting service, we're looking forward to you placing your orders now so we can see the pockets with the greatest densities of orders being placed. That will help us to identify and work with the design to determine what areas to focus on initially. So help is coming to the West End for those higher internet speeds. So this is the map that you've been seeing for the last couple months. This was what we were thinking was the 2021 expansion. It is now the 2022 expansion. So this will be the area from A Avenue east to the city limits. And we've just put a pause on that design work being done now to focus on the 2021 expansion area. So we have the budget prepared for this section where we've forecasted the revenue and the projected construction costs. We have our Public Works and Economic Adjustment Assistance Grant through the EDA application submitted, and that will be reviewed in early January. So we are excited to hear about that. And Savvy Bank has approved a line of credit. So they've been working with us. So by the end of 2022, we will have passed a total of 6,388 premises of the city's projected 7,600. So we really are moving the expansion of the network forward at a pretty quick rate of pace. Our outreach has been really providing us with a really steady growth in new orders. And what I really attribute a lot of that to is to the staff. Their professionalism in the field, the ability to quickly call and speak to somebody on the phone and not have to go through a crazy phone tree to try and get questions answered. We have utilized A-Town as our town just to share information about the network. We did a utility bill envelopes. The sanitation vehicle billboards are still up and about every day. And we're utilizing Facebook door hangers when the neighborhood is ready for order. And that is not knocking on doors. This is sharing information that we have service available in your neighborhood. If you'd like to sign up, go ahead and place an order. And lots of word of mouth referrals. In coming activity in early 2022, we will continue with our installations in all of our current service areas. We still have an additional 228 orders in the 2020 aerial expansion areas that need to go into service. So we have a good bit of work to keep us busy. And we'll work on that EDA grant. So that application is going to be reviewed, like we said, in January, and we're very hopeful that it will be supported with this. I do want to just point out that broadband for a municipal setting is a new business for the EDA to consider as a funding opportunity. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have as we are continuing with our expansion of the network.
Mayor Gare?
Mr. Young.
Ms. Hsu, would you elaborate just a little bit more on the shift from those that were in queue for 2021 now being 2022? And, I just happen to be part of that group that was so hopeful for installation at my home. And so I'm just curious as to, again, more depth as to why that shift occurred and how you're going to address it.
Certainly. And that's a very valid concern, and it's something that we certainly have considered here. So the Economic Development Administration is looking at the areas with the business opportunities. And so it wasn't as simple as just shifting the scope of our work to another year's work to be able to make this work. The area that we're going to be doing that is the new 2022 expansion area. Includes the remaining areas of the city along South Commercial. They include the industrial areas and the areas where the EDA would be most interested in supporting. We know that it will be disappointing to the folks that felt that they were in that expansion area, but we just do not want to be sitting waiting for that funding to come forward for us to be able to move forward. There are very stringent contracting requirements that will just take some time to work through. And so we wanted to make sure that we were able to continue with our expansion and pass as many homes as possible in 2021, knowing that we'll be moving to this area in 2022.
Mayor Gare?
Walters.
What is the current average time to get connected to service if you're requesting service in an area where we've already built out the distribution network?
Some places we can sign you up that next day and get you installed. We have had situations where people have called and we've got them installed same day. Sometimes it's a little bit longer. We are putting a priority on the aerial installations because we're able to achieve more in a shorter amount of time, and holding off on some of the more complicated underground installations. One of the goals that had been set by City Council is that we have 500 installations before the end of the year. We are on track to meet those 500 installations, but we're trying to do some of the low-hanging fruit first, which are those aerial installations. The time that we met last month to now, we have 101 new installs. So we're really making that headway. I've been talking a long time about we're just, doing everything we can, and that there's going to be this big uptick in the number of installs. And gosh, we're doing that now. The team is really on fire. So.
Thank you.
Mayor Garrett,
yes, Mr. Lambert.
In a little bit further answer to Councilperson Young's question.
Are you there, Mr. Lambert?
Yes, I am.
I think we just need to turn the volume up a bit. Jim?
In answer to Councilperson Young's question, the Economic Development Agency administration will review our application in mid-January. There are three possible outcomes from that initial review. If they were to give us an immediate yes, that does not mean that the grant gets issued immediately. It starts then a very detailed and quite extended period during which the EDA asks us for another mountain of information. At long last, after they've collected that, and they said that typically takes several months.
read several as more than 3. Upon completion of that, they give us the official approval to then issue a competitive procurement process. That process will probably run a good 2 months, most likely. Once that process runs and a contractor is then selected, the contractor can then, and only then, start ordering materials that are necessary for that construction. So now we're getting into easily into the second half, probably the third or fourth quarter of 2021 at that point. And the contractor is not yet able to start work until he gets those materials in hand, possibly another 2 to 3 months. So that puts us starting the work that is funded by the EDA grant at the very earliest, very late 2021. And that's why we felt it necessary to find a different area to construct network infrastructure in during 2021. Because if we waited for the EDA grant funds, we'd basically sit and do nothing for all of 2021. And our guess was that you would not be happy with that. And so we decided to find another area to work in for 2021 and instead shift that original 2021 area to 2022 to use those grant funds for. And that's the big reason why we did that shift.
I really appreciate that. If I could just follow up on that one piece. It was that basically, would you also then explain the difference between this funding source for the area that's now 2022 versus the funding source for area that's 2021?
Correct.
Yes, sir. For what we now plan to do for 2021, we will use funds from the Savvy Bank line of credit. For the work that we plan to do in 2022, we will use a combination of grant funds from EDA, that's assuming that we're successful with that, and then additional debt financing of some sort, whether that's that existing line of credit with Savvy Bank, a new line of credit, or a different debt vehicle of some sort. It would be some combination of those sources of funds.
I absolutely understand that part. I guess what I'm looking to hear is that it was a financial. Thank you, Mirga. Just last question. It really was a financial decision, meaning the number of households you would go by that created this. Because okay, go right ahead, Mirga.
What I want to add, I think the missing piece in this discussion is the EDA funding. If we receive it, we have to use it in a part of town, which A Avenue East, it's based on job creation. Is that correct, Emily?
That is correct, yes.
If we were to use up all our money from Savvy Bank in your neighborhood, Anthony, we wouldn't be able to access the EDA funding because that can't be used out in Skyline because there wouldn't be, or the West End, there isn't a job creation that we have on this side of town. So that really is the basic, isn't it?
I totally understand that, and that explains it for me perfectly. Thank you, Mirga. Thank you, team.
You're welcome. So we estimate how many jobs are we going to create in that area, Emily, based in our grant application or retain?
We do, and I don't have that at the tip of my fingers tonight, but we have 3 beneficiaries that have signed on as part of the grant application, indicating very significant either new jobs or retainage of current jobs in the area. So we appreciate their partnership in the application process.
Anyway, all right. Any more questions for Emily or Jim?
Mayor Gare?
Yes, Mr. McDougall.
I had a couple comments, actually. I think the Fiber Department is making a great call by shifting the schedules around in order to to serve the West End, begin serving the West End next year, and still targeting that grant funding because any help we can get with funding construction is terrific. So I think the tactical move there is a great move. Totally support it. And Anthony, I'm with you. I think about at least half the council is seeing their fiber service move back here. So, oh well, best thing for the community. I also wanted to just thank the fiber department for a terrific year. It's been a challenging year at times. It's been a major construction project and logistical challenge, and the team has put in processes in place now where you can really see them the project is accelerating. Originally, we kind of pictured a 4-year construction project, and it looks like 85 or 90% of the community will be covered within a 3-year construction project. So that's just fantastic. So I wanted to thank the entire team for their hard work and overcoming challenges and resilience, and just a great job, and thank you.
Now I want to commend Emily and Jim with their leadership. It's been a truly amazing journey. Thank you.
Thank you. We're excited to provide this service to the community and appreciate the support of the City Council and the Mayor in having the vision for us to be able to provide this for our community. We're the first in Washington State, first municipality that is providing service and being the internet service provider.
Ryan, did you have a comment? I see your hands up on my little icon here.
That was a while back.
Okay, all right.
Mayor Garrett.
Yes, Mr. McDougall.
I also actually wanted to say one more thing about the department's customer service and everything I've heard in the community and kind of seen out in forums and stuff. The customer service of the department has been just given the highest praise. So great job there. That's a huge piece. That is our key competitive advantage out in a competitive market, is to provide that terrific customer service. So thank you.
We're very pleased with the team that we've put together, and then they certainly have the right approach to customer service.
All right, any additional questions? Anything else you want to add this evening, Emily?
No.
Here.
Again, our thanks.
All right, you're welcome. Mr. Walters.
I want to second Mr. McDougall's comments on customer service, and for me, that's having been the recipient of that customer service in person. It really is different from other service providers in a good way, and I think it is a huge differentiator for us.
So if you can pass that on to your team, Emily.
Happy to share that with the team. Yes, thank you.
Okay, well, if there's no other comments tonight from council or audience, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. And I wish you all a very happy holiday, and we'll convene again next week. All right, good night. The meeting is adjourned.